So good morning and good afternoon and good evening, everyone. My name is Sabine Rakotomalala, and I'm from the World Health Organization, and I'm looking forward to hosting this town hall with our UNICEF colleagues, Stephen Blythe, who is online. This is actually the first town hall of the year. We had many last year, and despite complex circumstances that we're living in, we're still feeling very excited by all the pledges that were made in Bogota, the work that was done in the past 18 months previous to Bogota and going forward. I've put the agenda in the chat for today. So we have a brief introduction by UNICEF on the accountability process following Bogota going forward. Then we have a brief overview of the parenting pledges and a brief overview of the Safe School pledges and corporal punishment work that's been going on since Bogota. And then a short presentations from the on the survivor movement and the youth movement. And then we're doing a short country spotlight on Indonesia, who will give an overview of what the situation has been since Bogota and what they are hoping to achieve going forward. So without further ado, I will hand over to Stephen. As always, don't feel free to put your questions in the chat, and we'll try to answer them at the appropriate times. Also, if you have a question throughout the presentations, just put your hand up. Don't hesitate. It's a free for all. We really want this to be interactive and engaging. So don't hesitate to ask any questions, and we'll, of course, leave time for questions at the end of every presentation. So with that, I'll hand over to you, Stephen.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Sabine, and greetings to all. It's good to see you all here at this town hall. What I thought I would do in this introduction is just zero in on the pledging and on the accountability mechanism we're trying to build in around the pledging. And most of you will recognize that, one of the key outcomes of the Bogota conference has been the volume of pledges that have come in. A total of 120 pledges, including 113 pledges from governments. And our ultimate objective is to see these pledges implemented. And in particular, that more children are reached by these pledges that have some effectiveness in reducing violence against children or the harms associated with it. So accountability around these pledges is an active process, and ensuring and encouraging the implementation of the pledges submitted will be an ongoing effort. And we look at this at two levels. Firstly, an official process, and as well as a strategic shadow effort by allies and advocates. So in terms of the official accountability, I'm sure most of you are aware, have consulted the pledge platform, which is on the conference website. So this provides a centralized focal point for pledge makers, and we'll be asking governments to report on pledge implementation on an annual basis. And we'll also be asking governments to strengthen those pledges that are not clear. Some of the pledges are not measurable, they're not verifiable. So we're asking them to strengthen those pledges. As well, to submit any progress updates, new or strengthened pledges, and reports on the pledges. These will all be updated in the conference website on the pledging platform, available for everyone to see. Okay, there's also, we're promoting a shadow accountability process. And here, we're asking for the help of everyone on this call. We all have a role to play. And so this accountability process would take place at global, regional, and national levels. The pledge platform is not only a way of governments to update their pledges and monitor their pledges, but it's also a platform that promotes transparency. And we're going to promote this platform as a key resource across sectors, across agendas. So it's a resource for all those wishing to hold pledge makers to account. We hope that intergovernmental accountability mechanisms, such as the Committee on the Rights of the Child and the High-Level Political Forum and SDGs, will refer to the pledges in country reporting. We hope that the pledges will help anchor the Global Pathfinding Alliance, and we hope that movements such as BRAVE, such as Restless Development, will help hold governments account through their survivor-based or youth-based advocacy. Communities of practice are also invited to use the pledging platform. We're thinking of ISPCAN and the Rise Up Forum, the Out of the Shadows Index, and the communities of practice around parenting, schools, online protection, health, and so on. At regional level, we see it as very important to build in regional peer review and support processes. We know that governments look to their neighbors often for inspiration, and we hope through building this peer review mechanism at regional level, we could build partnerships around effective delivery of the Bogota pledges. This includes integration of pledges in policy frameworks of intergovernmental regional bodies. So here, we're thinking of intergovernmental regional bodies such as ASEAN, such as the African Union, ECOWAS, South Asia, CIVAC, amongst others. Finally, at country level, and we're looking at all of you who have a footprint in countries to help us engage all relevant sectors and stakeholders. It will mean incorporating support to pledge implementation in the work plan of development partners. It means both undertaking the high-level political advocacy at national level, as well as the grassroots advocacy through civil society organizations, and of course informed by the voices of children. It means using national media, raising public awareness about violence against children and about national commitments to address it. And it's about encouraging governments, recognizing progress, developing human interest stories, stories of impact, and so on to help motivate governments in moving forward in pledges. So that's a quick overview of how we see the accountability process. Sabine, I don't know if you will have anything to add to that.
No, nothing to add except for that we are hoping that the ministerial conference website, as it stands now, is still very much focused on the ministerial conference. Within the next few weeks, it will be completely revamped to be much more focused on becoming a pledge platform so that we can look into a second ministerial conference and third ministerial conference. And I'm just going to hand over to Pablo, but it's really great that we have Isang and or Parenting for Lifelong Health, UNESCO, and WHO that can present on the pledging analysis, because this will be an important component so that people at country level, at regional level, and global level can quickly dive into the dashboard to understand what's going on at a country level, at a regional level, and at a thematic level. But before handing on to Isang, Pablo, you wanted to add something?
Thank you, Sabina. Thank you, Stephen.
Oh, I think you're on mute, Pablo.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
So nothing much to add. Thank you, Sabina. Thank you, Stephen, for the good briefing. Just to add that the special representative continue fully engaged on the process together with WHO and UNICEF and all the partners and the governments following up on the pledges made in Bogota. in every single mission that is taking country visits. We are doing analysis of those pledges by theme, by area, by priority, and she's stressing the importance of starting implementation. In some of the countries, implementation has already started from those visits, and also as part of the Pathfinding Global Alliance that was launched in Bogota, with whom we are working very closely with the 41 countries and new countries that have expressed interest to join in the Pathfinding Global Alliance. So in addition to what the colleagues have said now from our side at the highest political level, we are also supporting the SRSG, supporting and ensuring that this momentum is also take forward and trying to facilitate. And I think the way Sabine and colleagues facilitated the preparation of the pledges and how they have been organized is making easier to do also the searching on particular themes, because there are sometimes we are focusing on particular issues of administration of justice, particular issues which are on parenting and others. And I think it's very useful for us to continue putting the emphasis on implementation. So thank you very much, and courageous to all of you to help us at the country level, because I think this is what is happening right now. And we hope you are going to continue supporting implementation at the grassroots level. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. And thanks, Pablo, for, I mean, as Stephen so rightly said, there's the shadow process and then there's the diplomatic process. And we know the SRSG's office is so great in pushing for the diplomatic process. And at the same time, we can move more behind the scenes as well. Isang, I'll show your slides if that's okay.
Sure,
and over to you on the parenting pledges.
Thank you so much, Sabine, and hi, everyone. I'm Isang Awa from the Global Parenting Initiative and Parenting for Lifelong Health, and I have a brief presentation on behalf of me and my colleague, Professor Lucy Clover. The first slide, please, Sabine. So far, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Yeah. We have a total of 52 countries that have made pledges on parenting, and this includes pledges that commit to scaling up parenting programs or parenting practices and or solutions, or providing some sort of support to other parents and caregivers. So you can see on this slide, they show the flags of the countries that included parenting in their pledges, a total of 52 countries and 52 flags. The next slide, please. And on this slide, we can see the countries based on their regions. So we have a little image here that shows the countries and the regions that they're based in. Africa, from Africa, we had 24 countries include parenting in their pledges, and Asia had 9, and so on. Because I have limited time, I'm not going to mention all. The next slide, please.
I'm sorry, I'm so sorry to interrupt. Just to let you know that the slides are not moving. So we only see the first slide, not the rest. Thank you.
Sorry, is this better, Brianna? Or I don't know who's sorry.
It is still only the cover page, not the other slides.
And now?
I think it's
Not
because
yet.
it's not in presentation mode. So maybe if you put it in presentation mode, it will start moving to the next one.
You
Can
might
you
also
click
need to
enable editing?
editing. Yeah, enable editing at the top. Thanks.
Okay.
Yes, it's okay now.
Thank
That's
you.
okay.
Perfect. Thanks.
Thank you. So this has the flags from the countries, and I've spoken about this one, yes. So we also, no, the next one, please. The next one. No, not this one. I spoke about this one briefly. Yes, this one. We also analyzed the pledges based on the themes. And what we found out is that some of the key thematic priorities are scaling up evidence-based parenting programs, integration into national policies and systems, use of digital and innovative solutions, capacity building for parenting program facilitators, mental health and psychosocial support, among other themes. We did a further analysis based on the region, and I'll just briefly comment that we found out that Africa focused on scaling evidence-based parenting programs, violence prevention, and integrating parenting into national systems, whereas Asia emphasized digital solutions, mental health, and early childhood development. And in Latin America, prioritizing marginalized communities and family support in conflict-affected areas was a major theme. For Europe and North America, there was a focus on funding, capacity building, and research-driven parenting approaches. The next slide, please. Great, thank you so much. I think Stephen touched on some of the things I wanted to say here. We further analyzed the pledges based on their specificity, funding commitments, and implementation timelines. And this is what we found out, that only from the 52 pledges, only 32 were specific and measurable. Then in terms of having funding allocated for the implementation of these pledges, only 10 countries allocated something, funding for the pledges. 42 countries so far have not allocated any funding for the implementation of the pledges. And in terms of having a clear implementation plan and timeline, only 30 countries have a clear timeline and implementation timeline. So they still need to refine these pledges. And I was really excited to hear Stephen talk about this. Okay, the next slide, please. And based on analysis, would like to end with some recommendations. And the first is to work with our governments to refine these pledges, to make them specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. And there's also need for us to advocate for funding, including budget allocation, and to work, it might be, government allocation, donor support, private sector investment, but there's really need to have bonding and funding for the implementation of these parenting pledges. We also want to encourage everyone to work to ensure strong political buy-in so that these commitments are embedded in national laws so they can survive leadership changes and political changes. Then another recommendation we would like to make is to encourage our governments to leverage digital solutions so we can scale impact through low-cost digital solutions. Another recommendation is to prioritize workforce development, and this includes training facilitators, teachers, and social workers. Then the last recommendation is to strengthen accountability, to set up independent review mechanisms to track progress. So we are excited that we have these pledges, and we're looking forward to working with our governments to see these pledges implemented, but we want to make this recommendations. I don't know if my colleague Lucy would like to make any comment, any additional comment before I hand over back to Sabine.
Nothing to add. Thank you very much for that super comprehensive presentation, Isang. Are there any questions around the parenting pledges? And we'll make these presentations constantly available also on the website so that people can keep remembering what we need to do going forward for the different thematic areas. Are there any questions to Isang on the parenting pledges? If not, I'll hand over to Joanna from UNESCO. Joanna, are you online? I know you're traveling.
Hi. No,
Yeah,
I'm here. I'm not traveling anymore and here. Right, let me see if I can just quickly, those were fantastic slides with great analysis. I don't have such in-depth analysis. Gosh, sorry, I've just got to pull up the slides. Excuse me. And I also just need to say that this is all the work of my colleague Elsa, who couldn't join today, but she's the one who has who's been working on this analysis. Sorry, excuse me, I'm having a technical problem here. That's really
weird. Joanna, would you like us to go to the corporal punishment ones in the meanwhile?
No, can you see my slides now?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay.
You just need, yeah.
Great. So 45 countries have included the notion of safe learning environments in their pledges, of which the majority are in sub-Saharan Africa. So 27 from sub-Saharan Africa, 4 from Asia, 3 from Europe and Central Asia, 2 in MENA, and 9 from the Latin America and Caribbean regions. There's a lot of text on these slides. We can share it afterwards. I didn't have time to put things into lovely graphics like the colleague who just presented did. I just wanted to share this as a reminder that when we're talking about safe learning environments and education and the role of education in ending violence against children, there's many different ways that schools and the education system need to be thinking about violence. So it's not just about curriculum approaches. That is important, but there's many other aspects to create this kind of comprehensive approach. So sorry if I'm speaking to people who are already very familiar with this, but it just felt like it's an important reminder that we need to be seeing action on many different fronts. So what's happening in a school environment, for example, is that are there good quality, is the infrastructure appropriate, is there lighting, are there private and lockable toilets? Those are some of the basic things we might think about. Is there a reporting system in schools? There's an important question around the referrals and the relationship between child protection services and education services. So I just put that out there as a little reminder. So when we looked at the pledges, we looked at the different kinds. The greatest number of pledges, like thematically, were on curriculum, teaching and pedagogy. So you can see the list of countries here that included in their pledge something on teacher training, on strengthening their life skills curricula, something on, for example, positive discipline, digital safety, adding that into the curriculum. So what's really interesting there is countries really looking at what they already have in place and how they can strengthen it. And a range of different countries, as you can see. Teacher training is a really important issue, which has often not been adequately addressed. I think quite often there's this sense that, well, if it's put in the curriculum, then teachers will just deal with it. But as we know, in many countries, teachers don't necessarily get the quality and length of training they need, whether that's pre-service or ongoing professional development. And also there's a lot of gaps in terms of supporting teachers to adopt positive discipline methods in school rather than corporal punishment. But in terms of teacher training, you can see here the list of the countries that explicitly mention that. It's not really enough, to be honest, and I think we need to be doing a lot more advocacy on this, this issue. We were pleased to see that there were a number of countries that did talk about school governance, the mechanics of delivering education and at the policy level. So codes of conduct, which often are primarily for teachers and school personnel, sometimes include an element of code of conduct and behaviour for learners as well. Mechanisms for safeguarding, for example, reporting, so on. So the higher policy level things which are so critical to making sure that violence does get ended. So a mixture of countries there, but again, not a huge number. 14 countries of pledges related to corporal punishment. In some of them, we pulled these out because they talked about corporal punishment in general. And so we understand that to mean that it should also be in schools. Some places it explicitly mentioned schools. And you can see that as an example there with Guinea, that's talking about the cost and the amount to be invested. Not a huge amount, but we can see that these countries are really starting to look at this and make an effort in this direction. Positive discipline is coming up an awful lot as terminology, and there are a lot of methods and a lot of ways that that notion has been rolled out or has been integrated into teacher training or into school practice in different countries, but it's a long-term project and challenging in those places with enormous class sizes and with a long tradition of using power, kind of authoritarian language and physical punishment in a classroom setting to control learners. So a lot of work that needs still to be done there. And then there are a number of other different areas of work that were mentioned. So there's 11 pledges included mention of school-based or school-linked services, which could be around mental health, child protection, safeguarding, connection to social services. 7 that were particularly on mental health and psychosocial wellbeing, which I think is a really positive upward direction, and we're hearing more and more countries being interested in that. I think it's important, just in parentheses, a reflection that we've been having at UNESCO recently, is that work on mental health and psychosocial support needs to be well connected and linked to work on ending violence, but it's not the only reason that you need to work on mental health. So I want to make sure that we don't make the mistake of folding mental health work exclusively under violence work, but seeing them as two very mutually beneficial areas of intervention. Presumably that's the same in community and home-based programming as well. Enabling environment, 5 pledges, again, 5 pledges on learner participation, very low. We would really hope to have seen something a lot higher there, so there's more advocacy there. That we looked at those with mention of sexual violence specifically because of the importance of looking at sexual violence and the fact that education sectors have often struggled to know how to deal with this because schools don't really want to be the ones to be labelled a school where there's been examples and been incidences of sexual violence, although those taboos are being broken. But it was good to see some there. Bullying language sometimes comes up, bullying, cyberbullying. We see that particularly in Latin America and in Europe and higher income countries. It's the terminology we tend to hear more. Linkages to online violence. We looked also at the gender lens and those pledges which had specifically mentioned gender, given the importance of gender as a driver of violence against children and violence in schools, particularly, well, in younger children, but also very much in adolescence. And I've obviously copied and pasted something wrong there because I've got 11 pledges that integrate a gender lens and 3 on safe learning environments. But I'm just trying to think what I got wrong there. I'll come back to that in a second. Maybe that one of them was...
Is it training?
Yeah. I don't know. I don't have the document. I'll flick over to the document in a second.
Mom, I'm probably going to at like 4.
4? Why?
Because we're still in traffic.
Hi. Sabine, you're on mute, but I think, yeah, if someone could put themselves on mute, that'd be great.
Somebody was on mute. Yeah, was unmuted, so I just muted them.
Okay, so that's the analysis of the pledges. And if anyone wants to just understand a little bit more about what this kind of approach is and the thinking around why and how education can be included in this wider work on ending violence against children, feel free to flash that code and have a look at the document that we produced. Thanks, guys.
Thanks so much, Joanna, for the excellent presentation. I just want to remember, we have Inspire 7 strategies to end violence against children. The ones that have the strongest evidence are parent to caregiver support and school-based interventions, which is why we keep highlighting those. Of course, the other ones are important, and we're going to listen to Helen now on the corporal punishment work. There's obviously a strong link between corporal punishment and parenting, a strong link between corporal punishment and corporal punishment in the school setting. So with that, I'll hand over to Helen to give a bit of an update on where we stand on corporal punishment.
Sorry, I just want to go back to that last, where I was confused with those last 2 numbers. I've just double-checked the document. The 11 countries, including gender, was across the thematic priorities, which seems very small when we look at all of the different pledges. That only 11 include explicit mention of gender, and then of those 4 reference gender in schools. That was the different numbers. Thanks.
Thanks, Joanna. Over to you, Helen.
Thanks so much, Sabine. Hello, friends. It feels like it's been a few months. I am going to spend a couple of minutes updating you on some of the brilliant progress on corporal punishment since the conference. But I just wanted to pause for a minute to say thank you. These are challenging times, but the fact that 125 people, perhaps 5 AI bots, but 120 of you are on this call today tells us everything we need to know. It tells us that in these challenging times, we need to maintain momentum, that we have this shared appetite as a global community to work together to really drive delivery, really drive accountability. And I think it's really encouraging that actually this is the same size of group, if not slightly higher than we had in all those months preceding the ministerial. So yes, a moment matters, but there's still that shared commitment and that vested interest to drive through to making sure this really matters for children affected by violence. So thanks for being here, and thanks for having faith in the fact that we can achieve more together than we can separately. A few minutes on corporal punishment. Many of you will remember that in addition to those 3 breakthroughs at the ministerial conference that Sabine mentioned, so through parent and caregiver support, through educational settings and through response services, corporal punishment and ending corporal punishment was also one of the big success headlines from the ministerial conference. You might remember that 8 countries made individual commitments to put in place legislation to begin the process on corporal punishment. And that collectively a group of 4 governments, so that was Kenya, Benin, Nigeria and Uganda, made a shared announcement at the ministerial conference to pursue a first ever World Health Assembly resolution on ending corporal punishment. Since then, there has been real momentum. It's been really fantastic to see and to support. There have been a number of informal meetings, and not just for those 4 member states, actually for a really broad and quite diverse and strong group of member states who want to maintain momentum around this issue. So much so, last week at the executive board of the World Health Organization, corporal punishment was presented as a public health concern. This is the first time in over 75 years of World Health Organization activity and business that corporal punishment has ever come to the executive board for discussion. It was presented as a shared statement, and it was a shared statement from Kenya, Costa Rica, Brazil, Armenia, Colombia, Finland, Sierra Leone, and Spain. And that is all of the member states that felt willing and able to sign to quite a long shared statement on ending corporal punishment as a public health concern. But it's not even fully reflective of all of the member states who are starting to work together on this issue. There's significant momentum. In fact, the countries are coming together in person in Geneva, just that informal group of champions this week, to start planning their likely efforts in the future. And we hear that it's likely that at the Human Rights Council meeting in the start of March and at the World Health Assembly in May, there will again be a shared member state effort to elevate the profile of corporal punishment as an international issue of public health concern, and that they will likely continue to pursue a first ever UN resolution on the issue. So that is a potted summary of the progress on corporal punishment, but again, I think is really indicative of some of those collective efforts coming out of the ministerial and how we can work together to advance the agenda. Thanks so much, Sabine.
Thanks, Helen, and thanks for your enthusiasm. Any questions? We've heard 3 thematic areas. We also have pledge analysis of the online space. Safe Online has done great work, and of the humanitarian pledges, but we'll keep those for the next town hall. Are there any questions? Tush?
Yeah, hi everyone. Thanks again and for the wonderful work that you guys are doing. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Perfect. Helen, would it be possible for you to share this the shared statement that they made last week with the WHO and a little bit more details on corporal punishment, purely because I am pushing it from our end in Sri Lanka, and we have actually now got the draft bill on ending corporal punishment ready to be submitted to Parliament.
We can add it in the notes of the meeting, Tush. We'll add these presentations as well as the shared statement.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jonathan.
And great news, Tush.
Jonathan, your hand up?
Thank you. I thought it was very good to, Sabine, that you mentioned the Inspire strategies, because it occurred to me that there must be a number of questions about what works and what doesn't under the family-based and education-based pledges. And so I wondered if there is any other toolkit or list of interventions that work that we're pointing pledge makers to, so that they can understand in detail how to intervene in the way that they hope.
Thanks, Jonathan. That's a really important point, and I should have maybe just elaborated a little bit, but I didn't want to take more time. Inspire, the 7 strategies are still all 7 strategies that work, and I know you're running the Cardiff model, which is a safe space, a safe environment approach, and those that are in Inspire, and there's 52 programs and interventions that are in Inspire, and those all work across different 7 of the 7 strategies. We're honing in on parent, the caregiver, and school-based because they have the highest number of evidence-based reviews, because we've just done an Inspire update. So we're reviewing the evidence again and seeing that over the past, 5 years, 6 years since Inspire was launched in 2016? Oh, 9 years, wow. There's just more and more evidence coming out on school-based interventions and parent and caregiver, but that doesn't preclude the other 5 strategies from still being completely relevant. So all 7 Inspire strategies are relevant, and parent and caregiver and school-based are just the ones that are having more and more evidence behind them. With that, I want to hand over to Emily from the Brave Movement. Emily?
Hi Sabine, hi everyone. Great to hear all of those incredible updates. It's amazing really to reflect that it hasn't been that long since the ministerial and hear the depth of the work that's been taken forward by everyone. It's really exciting. Great, a little bit from us. I don't have a presentation, I'm afraid, but a few updates from the Brave movement side and on behalf of the Global Survivor Council. First up, on the kind of pledge accountability piece, I'm sure like many others, we are already involved in lots of conversations in country around certain specific pledges. We've had a range of bilateral meetings with certain governments as kind of follow-ups from their pledges, where we've convened some of our survivor leaders and political figures in countries from the UK to France to Tanzania and Kenya to specifically push and ask the governments for updates on the pledges. So that's happening in quite a range of countries at the moment, and something we're planning to look to engage with more substantively and more globally as the year moves ahead, and keen to work with all others working on the accountability piece. As people might remember, we had a clear, our sort of priority ask was around governments to set up survivor councils around the ministerial, which is their sort of a sustainable kind of body within governments that would give survivors an ongoing voice on pledge accountability, but also on policy development on evac. There's been quite a lot of momentum around this work since the ministerial. There are some really great conversations going on around this in a range of governments, which we can't speak to in that much detail at the moment, as they're sort of being negotiated with different governments, but just wanted to share an update that we are seeing a lot of interest in this, and we'll be doing a lot more on that work moving forward. And again, I think something that can be really helpful to all the accountability work. We are looking ahead and doing some planning at the moment around a big sort of public campaign, sort of 1 year on, and mobilizing across our global movement, again, with a real focus on pledge accountability and kind of a call for financing to support those pledges. So more to come on that. We'll be working with the same people that we worked with last year on the Break the Record campaign. So we'll be excited to see what comes down the line with that. And of course, we'll be reaching out to lots of others to see if other people and other organizations would like to engage in that. And then the other thing I just wanted to note is the incredible sort of partnerships that we feel at Brave and Together for Girls have really come out of the ministerial work, and the great work that, you know, especially Sabine and Helen, you led last year, and bringing us all together through these meetings and beyond. We especially are working really closely with Restless and a lot of the youth work, and seeing some really exciting synergies between the survivor and youth work out of the back of the ministerial. So just wanted to flag that, because just an example of, I think, a very strong partnership we're seeing, as we are with many others that wouldn't have come about if it wasn't for the ministerial. So yeah, so yeah, a little update from us. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Emily. And really, that's the point of these town hall, is to connect dots. So please, if we're trying to connect dots for you all, and please also yourselves connect dots where you can. And that's a great bridge to Brianna from the Youth Mobilization Group. Brianna, are you online?
Hi, Sabine. Hi, everyone. Yes, let me just share my screen if I can. Let me find this. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Is it big enough?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, so hi everyone. My name is Brianna Marinas, and I'm from the Philippines. And I'm speaking here today on behalf of the Global Youth-Led Movement on Ending Violence Against Children. So before I start, I just want to say a big thank you to Restless Development, the World Health Organization, and the Children's Investment Fund Foundation for the commitment and support in making this movement possible. So as we know, our movement was officially launched last November 2024 during the Global Ministerial Conference. So in case you weren't able to hear our closing speech at the end last time, to formally introduce ourselves to all of you. So the Global Youth-Led Movement on Ending Violence Against Children is a unified collective of young people dedicated to breaking the cycles of violence by building a safer world where every child can thrive, free from harm and injustice. So we believe that violence against children can end in our generation, really, and that no child will be left behind. So our mission officially is fourfold. First is to unite all child/youth-led and focused organizations dedicated to ending violence against children, creating the first ever global network of young people that amplifies all of our collective efforts. Second is to equip and empower young people with the knowledge, tools, and resources that they need to actually dismantle the cycles of violence against children for good, because we need the tools. And then third is to champion these leadership by ensuring that young people are at the forefront of national and international decision-making processes, driving policies and actions that prioritize the protection and well-being of children worldwide. And finally, it is to foster inclusivity and equitable opportunities to ensure that young people, no matter their background or their status, can meaningfully contribute to the movement in a way that feels best for them. So just to give you guys an update, so since November, our movement has actually been involved in a number of local and international events, thanks to the support of many partners. So in December, we participated in a workshop hosted by Childlight to identify a pathway to global restitution for survivors of child sexual exploitation and abuse. Earlier this month, we also joined the Kingdom of Philippines Regional Children's Dialogue on co-creating a safer digital environment with child leaders from the Philippines, Indonesia, and Nepal, who, by the way, all want to join the movement. And so all the way in Kenya, we also joined the launch of the Bridge Beyond Barriers project with the Tanada Youth Action Africa. And just last week, if you guys were able to attend, we actually co-organized an interactive and youth-led Safer Internet Day webinar with Save the Children, We Protect Global Alliance, and Tech Coalition on child/youth perspectives and solutions to improve AI safety. And so the next time you'll see us is actually next week at the RightsCon in Taipei, where our youth mobilizer from Brazil, Isabel Santos, sadly she's not on the call right now, but I can send her contact here, will attend with the support of Safe Online. So I'll share her contact shortly in the group chat so that if you're going next week, you'll be able to reach out to her and connect them. And so now moving on to our plans for 2025. So we have very, very exciting plans to share with you. But first, we finally officially want to establish our national chapters and regional networks for the movement. So we're going to be starting with the countries the youth mobilizers are based in, but we're also actively looking for young leaders from other regions who are willing and committed to set up the movement in their home countries. So these are the countries, in case you all forget where our youth mobilizers are currently based. We're planning to hopefully at least set up 3 official national chapters by the end of the year. Next, and this is a personal project of mine, we're planning to host the first ever National Youth-Led Summit on Ending Violence Against Children right here in the Philippines. And so preparations are currently in the works, so if you would like to collaborate, please reach out. And so this is also in preparation for, hopefully, and I'm praying, the first ever global youth-led conference on EVAC before the second global ministerial next year in 2026. And lastly, for this year, we also want to formalize our partnerships with governments and adult-led organizations and CSOs. So how to get involved? So right now, we would love to connect with young leaders and child/youth organizations in your home countries and also in your organizations. And please partner with us for projects and events. You can contact us through our team email, youthmobilizersevac@gmail.com, or you can also reach out to me personally if you want a faster response. My email is there and also my WhatsApp. And very recently, we also just set up our LinkedIn page. So here's the QR code for that. And if anybody has any questions, please reach out to them. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Brianna. I mean, if anybody ever doubts why we're getting youth involved, I mean, the energy from the young people is just brilliant. And the way you guys are multiplying already so much, Brianna, is really impressive. Same for, I would say, Emily from the Survivor Movement. There's a huge energy there for the shadow work that Stephen was talking about. I just want to see if there's any questions. Rebecca, I see you have a question.
I mean, I guess it was just more to the questions in the chat box as well about connecting, you know, the child-led work that also was supporting the ministerial conference. So making sure that children are part of that if possible, if there is this youth conference. And then also, I think there was a comment in the chat about connecting it to the voices of survivors as well. We don't want to make them competing. So the more that we can do to collaborate together, the more exciting that would be. Thanks.
And Becky, can I just jump in before Brianna answers? But this is definitely on the forefront of everyone's mind, both I know the Brave movement and the youth movement. And we know that children become youth, that a lot of survivors are children, or children are survivors, or youth are survivors. So we're very carefully articulating, and I have to say it's just been brilliant to see the three groups working together to build this this kind of one group with three specificities. But Brianna, I'll let you answer, and or Emily, if you have any reactions to Rebecca's thoughts.
No, yes, same exact thoughts, Sabine. And what we really want is to bring everyone together. We want to focus on collaboration and collective efforts. And so I'm also really thankful for all the support all the childhood organizations have given us, and all those children who want to participate and who want to lead in the movement. And so there are definitely many, many opportunities to do that. And so, for example, for the National Youth-Led Summit that I'm currently organizing, we're going to have both child under 18 and below 25 leaders as part of the core organizing team. And so you'll hear about that in the months to come. It's still in the preparations, but very, very excited for that.
Great. Sophia, you had a question?
Yeah. Hi, Brianna. Good to see you again. Was just wondering, what age counts as youth to you, and do you have any information on the website or anything like that about what being involved actually entails?
Okay, so currently we don't have a website yet. We're still planning to set that up very soon, but I can also link the LinkedIn in the chat below very soon. I'll link it. And in terms of youth, so we also recognize that around the world, the definition for youth is very vague. So sometimes it's like below 24 and sometimes it's below 30. So current for our youth consultations last September to October, we had everyone below 30 just to include the different age variations. But in terms of, for example, national events or regional events, it can be specific to that type of country. So at least for the National Youth-Led Summit that we're organizing here in the Philippines, it's going to be below 25.
And just to remind, I mean, Restless has done great work with the Youth Coalition to get them from the delivery stage to the nappy stage to growing, and now they're growing, and hopefully at some point there will be an independent body able to function on their own, which is great. So I mean, huge kudos already to you guys, Brianna, for all the work you guys have done. Are there any other questions at this stage? Otherwise, I'm going to hand over to our colleagues from Indonesia.
Yes.
I don't see Helen. Am I missing questions, Helen? Hands up? No. Okay, then I will hand over to colleagues from Indonesia. Aisia, are you online?
Yeah, so hi everyone. I'm about to share my screen. So while I'm trying to share the screen, I'd like to let you know that my name is Arjuna Panarima. I'm a member of the working group on civil and participation rights at Indonesian National Commission on Child Protection. And I'm about to deliver a presentation on behalf of Silvana Maria Pitulay, our commissioner at KPII. So
I think I've shared your screen. Does this work?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just share my screen, Sabine.
Okay.
So I'm not sure if it's already here. Okay. So please just unmute if my screen is not available. So
we can see it.
Okay, thank you. And please also let me know if the screen is not moving. So KPII is actually a national human rights institution in Indonesia. Last year,
sorry to interrupt. I think you just have to put it on presentation mode.
Wait. Okay. So come again?
I think you just have to put it on presentation mode because we see all the slides now. Shall I share it?
Yeah,
Might it
that's
be
okay.
easier so that you can start?
That's okay. Yeah. So can you see it? Okay. Yeah, it's still on slide number 1. So Indonesia. So yeah. So as I said before, the KPA is an Indonesian national human rights institution. Last year we made pledges on behalf of the organizational our organizational stand. So we didn't make pledges on behalf of the government of Indonesia. And but despite that, we're still advocating for the government to submit the pledges on their own. As you can see on our Ending Violence Against Children conference website, the Indonesian government hasn't submitted any pledges. And so our mandate is basically monitoring and assessment activities. And we conduct this at national and regional levels. So Indonesia has approximately 514 cities and regencies in Indonesia. And these are all scattered in terms of geographically. And the other ways we do is we conducted online or virtual meetings with local government institutions and also children. And we also do field assessments, many field assessments. And these field assessments and also our monitoring activities are at risk of stopping because the government has recently announced that the budget will be reduced for other national priorities, which are not for child protection. And despite that, we are still trying our best to fulfill our pledge at the ministerial conference. So the recent violence against children situation in Indonesia, right now we have like approximately 88.7 million children, and most of the children experience more than one forms of abuse. Like say, if one children experience sexual violence, then it's highly likely that that person also experience physical violence or other forms of violence. And we at KPAI received like 2,000 reports, of which almost 1,000 cases were addressed and solved. And as for the cases that are not addressed and solved, the reports, the people, the impacted individuals received psychoeducational services and referrals to local service providers. So our pledges are mainly categorized into 4, which are the data collection and monitoring, which is close to our mandate, and response and support services, the parent and caregiver support, and safe and enabling school environments. So with the limited time here, I will not go into details, but I would like to say that despite the significant budget cut, we're thriving with the data collection and monitoring to enhance the child protection efforts by the central government and the local government. And we are still conducting the robust monitoring, the collection and monitoring of cases. And despite the budget cut, we managed to find that in 2024, there are at least 7 major issues that require immediate response by the central government, not just KPAI. The first one, which are the highest one, is the family environment and in alternative care. The second one is sexual violence against children. And so the 7 cases occurred in educational institutions or alternative care facilities. And the third one is barriers to education and leisure. The common issues, bullying. So bullying also happened in Indonesia. And children in Indonesia also experience discriminatory school policies, and children being denied education because they cannot, or the parents cannot afford the rising school fees, high dropout rates.
Sorry to interrupt. Asiya, sorry to interrupt. You have 1 minute left because maybe just the call to what you need from this group.
Okay, yeah. We'll get there. And so these seven major issues will not be resolved because with the limited budget cut, we don't have much. We don't have much budget to do. And bear in mind that we actually have zero budget to provide appropriate response for these issues. And so right now we're looking for the support in terms of joint monitoring using available data systems. We would like to integrate our oversight mandate and also leverage organizations' monitor networks to expand our reach, especially in rural and marginalized areas, because that are the hardest to reach in terms of budget also and geographically, and also to host virtual spaces for children to share their experiences. Last year, we hosted one with Indonesia joining forces to end violence against children, and we are looking forward to hosting more with other organizations or coalitions. And the second one is support in field work and case documentation. And because as I said earlier, field work takes significant.
Okay. All right. So media, I would just.
And so what we're looking forward to offering you at this stage is access to nationwide child protection data and insights, and localized insights from Indonesia's diverse provinces, especially in remote and rural regions in Papua. And
thank you. Asiya, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to interrupt you because we only have 1 minute left till the end of the town hall, but we will share your presentation with partners. I think it's really useful to get an insight of what's needed from Indonesia. And we do want to call on other partners in these town halls, as Asiya did beforehand, saying, can I have a little space to make a call to the group? So Asiya, thanks. We'll share your presentation. And if others going forward have the same needs, please let us know. I just saw that there was a colleague from the Mandela Foundation in South Africa who also wanted to say something as part of the AOB, and then I'm going to wrap up to make sure we stay on time. Are you still there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yeah. If you can just keep it to 1 minute, that would be great.
Yes, absolutely. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having us. This is Refilo Mokoena from the Nelson Mandela Children's Fund. So I think maybe to just keep it to the 1 minute, I'd like to introduce my colleague Anzio Jacobs, who'll give you a very quick rundown of the Africa Children's Summit, which I think would be a great opportunity for us to connect with the likes of Brianna and others in terms of children and youth-led movements focused on ending violence against children. So over to you, Anzio.
Good afternoon, everyone. Just very briefly, the Africa Children's Summit is taking place from the 4th to the 7th of April in 2025 here in Parktown, Johannesburg. This is an event that emanated from the 2023 conference, and one of the outcomes of the 2023 conference was indeed a conversation with Dr. Najat Mala on this ministerial conference that took place in Bogota. So we will have 21 African countries at a minimum being represented by a 300-strong in-person delegation in South Africa of children, with another 1,000 children joining us online. And the intention is really that the children engage on the 6 subject or subtopics rather that are listed in the second point on the screen. Those include participation in education, promotion of inclusive education, climate change on educational systems, contemplating the role of AI and technologies in education, and risks and barriers to access, as well as violence against children. This conference will take place in Johannesburg Johannesburg, South Africa, and will align to some of the discussion areas in alignment to the Agenda 2040, COP30, G20, Education 30, and some of the ambitions of the UNCRC. We really hope to connect with other delegations internationally so that they can speak back to the children as we enter the last phase of the planning of this event. And so maybe I can leave it at that. The information is on the screen. There is a website and it is linked to the Nelson Mandela Children's Fund's website. But this delegation will be coming in person to meet in between the 4th and the 7th of April. And the outcome statement of the African cluster will then be presented to the African Committee of Experts on the Rights and Welfare of the Child at the level of the AU. So maybe I can leave it at that.
Perfect. Thank you, Redlive and Arzio. It would be great if you could send us the slide. I really like how you're making connections to all the different issues linked to children. And so I think that's a key strategy of our group here, is to make those linkages between violence against children and education and climate and humanitarian and so on. I'm going to wrap up. We have 2 key moments coming up. Normally, if all goes well with the state of the world, which is a little bit uncertain now, normally we'll be meeting with a small group of key partners mid-March to discuss how we can continue driving this forward in terms of sexual violence, physical violence, emotional violence, online violence, humanitarian spaces. So hopefully that group will be meeting in mid-March to come back to you in April with some more concrete ideas and even more ambition to see how we can take the violence against children agenda forward. And the second one is the World Health Assembly, which is in May, which will also be a key moment for us to bring together partners and to measure where we are in terms of progress. That alongside, of course, the CRC, the High Level Political Forum, the Rise Up Forum. I want to wrap up with that. Again, as always, please don't hesitate to reach out to us if you would like to present something on the town hall, if you have any suggestions, and if not, we will be updating you through the town hall list as important things emerge. Thank you all very much, especially to the presenters who did a great job at presenting, and we look forward. The next town hall will probably be in the first week of April, and you will get a calendar invitation as always on that. Thank you all very much, and wishing you a great start to your week. Bye-bye.
Everyone, good up. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.